Hello, welcome to this YouTube video. We're going to learn 6 ways of sounding more authentically British. Possibly the easiest way to sound British is to put the word quite in every sentence before you describe something.
Quite.
If you're describing something, if you're using an adjective, like someone says to you, "How was that movie last night?" Don't say, "Yeah, it was good." Say, "It was quite good." If someone says to you, "How's Mike's Arabic?" Don't say, "It's good." Say, "It's quite good," or "It's quite bad," or "It's quite nice." "How are you today?" You say, "Yeah, I'm quite good, thanks." Always be polite. We like to be polite and say thank you. "How was that movie last night?" "Yeah, it was quite good actually." "How was the circus?" "Oh, it was quite fun." "How was bubble football?" "Oh, it was quite fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was quite fun." "What's the weather like?" "Oh, it's quite nice out. It's quite nice. It's quite sunny. It's quite hot. It's quite cold. It's quite big. It's quite small." Just say quite. Quite, quite, quite. Always say quite, and you will sound British. I don't think any other countries really use quite as much as we do.
It's quite difficult. Wow, it's quite difficult.
Are you well, Mr. Darcy?
Quite well.
Second word you can use is mate. Call everyone mate.
All right, mate. How you doing?
All right, mate, how's it going? All right. All right means, are you all right? And then mate is like friend. We use mate all the time.
Yeah, mate.
I went out with a few mates last night. I'm seeing some mates later. All right, mate, how you doing? Yeah, he's my mate, she's my mate. We're good mates. Yeah, we've been mates for years. I haven't got many mates. I've got loads of mates. Always say mates instead of friends or pals or buddies. We don't really say buddy. We don't really say pals, although in the north they say pal a little bit more. But mate would be like a typical British thing to say. "Oh, all right, mate, how's it going?" "Yeah, he's my mate. He's a good mate." "Oh, it's good to see you, mate. Really enjoyed that, mate. Thanks a lot, mate." Always add mate on the end of each word. Mate. Say mate. Just say it all the time and you'll sound British.
And I will enjoy taking the piss out of him for that time cover.
Taking the piss out of him?
Yes.
What does taking the piss out of someone mean?
Now, on to pronunciation. In the British accent, we like to pronounce our T's, if you're speaking proper English like the Queen's English, or we like to not pronounce them at all. So let me give you some examples. So the word water. Water, in British accent, we pronounce the T. Water. Water. Now, if you're from London, you speak like Cockney or a bit like slang.
You're pretty, like you're buffing.
You might say water, water. Give us some water, would you? Give us some water, water. But the important thing is here, in the British accent, we either pronounce the T, like water, that's how I would say it personally, water, or you just don't pronounce it at all, water. Now, the third way, which you'd hear in other accents, is to pronounce the T as a kind of like a D. So, water, water, water. I did 3 random accents really, which could have been anything, but in some accents, they might pronounce the T as like a D, but in the British accent, the T is a T, water, or not at all.
Mr. Potter.
Totally. We'd say totally. In other accents, they say totally. Totally. Listen to that. Totally. Totally. The T becomes like a D. Totally. We would say totally. 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 Rather than totally. Or you might say, if you're from London, you might say totally. "Oh, it's totally awesome. It's totally good. Yeah, it's totally good. Yeah, totally sick. Totally sweet. It was totally good. It was totally amazing." Witty. 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 Don't be so witty. Again, they're pronouncing the T as like a D. For example, in the American accent, they might say witty. "Oh, he's pretty witty." In British English, we'd say witty. Witty. Water. Totally. Always pronounce that T in the middle of the word as a T, not as like a D or anything like that. 4, pronunciation again. Americans say bin. Where are you been? In England, we say bean. We pronounce B like B-E-E-N. Like the same as we pronounce scene or spleen. We would pronounce bean like B-E-E-N. Where have you been? Have you been to Kuwait? Yes, I've been to Kuwait. Have you been to Saudi Arabia? No, I haven't been to Saudi Arabia. So we in Britain say bean. We don't say bin, like B-I-N or B-E-N. We say bean, we pronounce it bean. Where have you been? Have you been there? No, I haven't been there. Have you been to England? No, I haven't been to London. Have you been to America? Yes, I've been to America. Been. Americans would say been. We say been. Easy way to sound more British. Just say been instead of been. Now this one's a little bit difficult to explain, but something which is going to make you really stand out as speaking like the British accent is if you say certain phrases such as this one here. Now, on a first glance, it seems grammatically incorrect, and it actually technically is, but it's so commonly used in the British accent that it's kind of considered like a British dialect, and it's very widely accepted, certainly in spoken English, to say something like this. I was sat on the step. I was sat on the step. Now, if you're British, you're thinking, yeah, I was sat on the step, that's fine. I was sat on the bench. I was sat at the bus stop. Where are you? I'm sat outside the library. It's so common that you don't even think anything of it. But interestingly, if you're from a different country, you probably wouldn't say this. It's a very uniquely British way of saying something. Now, what's interesting here is we've got I was, and then, which is already a past tense, I was, and then we've got a past tense verb, sat. So we've got I was sat. Now we've doubled up those past tense verbs. I was sat. Now Americans would say I was sitting. Australians would say I was sitting. They wouldn't say I was sat. It's a very British, a common British colloquialism to say I was sat. If you're teaching a class, you might tell your class to stay sat. Stay sat. Now that's wrong English. You can't really argue that, but it's so common in the British accent that it wouldn't even be noticed if you heard that. Stay sat. Of course, the correct thing to say would be stay sitting. Don't move, stay sitting. But we'd say stay sat. Doesn't really make any sense, but it's what we say.
I remember exactly where I was sat. So I am sat here wiping away these tears. We were sat upon our best friend's roof.
Other examples of this funny rule would be I was stood. I was stood. Again, I was stood. Not I was standing, I was stood. I was stood outside a shop when I saw the celebrity come out the door, whatever. I was stood outside the shop when I heard a gunshot. I was stood outside the shop and all of a sudden it just poured with rain. I was stood next to my car when there was a collision right next to me. I was stood in your line. I was stood next to the lake when all of a sudden I saw 12 shooting stars at once. I was stood by the light as I looked through your window. We were just sat out on the step. We were just sat out on the step. Maybe if Jurassic 5 were British, not American, they might have changed their lyrics.
We were sitting out on the step,
I was stood at the bus stop when 3 buses just drove right past me. Yeah, so we say I was stood. Now this is a unique British thing. So I'm going to just put a few phrases there. These are phrases which you would say in British accent, but you wouldn't really hear in other languages.
Do you have a moment to talk about your lecture? I'm sorry, I've got plans with my sister.
Finally, number 6. The R's. This is the kind of probably the most common one. Number 6. Going back to our keywords we had earlier, like water, in British accent, we would say this as water, guitar, cater, slower, faster, tiger, ladder, refrigerator. Actually, we would never say refrigerator anyway, we would just say fridge, because we just say fridge. Translator. See, we don't pronounce the R. There's an R at the end of all of these words, but we just say it as tiger, not tiger. Translator. Smaller, bigger, faster, smaller, bigger, slower. We don't say we say we just end it in an Water, bigger, faster, slower, tiger, guitar, translator. So there you are, 6 ways of sounding more British very easily.
He's a major influence on me now, and I feel terrible.
That stupid English voice, was that me?
Unfortunately, yes.
I'm so looking forward to seeing your mother again. When I'm with her, I'm reminded of the virtues of the English.
But isn't she American?
Exactly.
So there you have it, 6 ways of sounding more British when you speak the English language. If you follow these 6 tips, then I promise you will sound British. I am Arabic Mike because I normally teach Arabic. Today I'm teaching English because I'm British and I can kind of speak about that. You've got more videos there and there, so you can watch more there. And when I disappear, you can subscribe right there. Take care, see you next time, bye-bye.
So put that in your pipe and smoke it.